It might have been 2 years ago that I created a video here on the channel in which I spoke about the fact that there is no best grading company out there. And part of the reason why I created this video was because I was receiving a lot of questions and seeing a lot of discussions around which grading company was the best. And I generally have a little bit of a problem with that because it's almost like saying for every single person in every situation, there is only one option. And I just don't believe that to be true. I think depending upon someone's situation or what they're trying to accomplish, one grading company may make more sense than another. And so in this video, what we're going to do is to talk about those situations, those cases where someone may opt for one company versus another. One of the big factors that drives a lot of people to encapsulate comics through a third-party grader is this idea of protection and preservation. And this is actually something that I've spoken about here on the channel several times over the last several years. I've created a ton of videos on this topic, but I have to make mention that sending a comic to a third-party grader is not the only way to achieve preservation and protection. You can actually use something called a self-slabbing kit from Comic Skin to achieve that goal. You essentially encapsulate the comic yourself. You can even create a customizable label. One thing that you could potentially pair with this Comic Skin product is something called an MIP sheet from Ready, Set, Collect. And MIP sheets, once upon a time, I do believe were used by CGC to slow down the aging process. They help to absorb smells and help to absorb some of the off gases that are generated by the breakdown of paper. And you can actually find some information on MIP sheets down in the description of this video. In addition to those two things, there are products like Gator Guard. And the folks over at Gator Guard actually produce a really nice acrylic UV protective case that allows you to encapsulate your comic yourself. It also doesn't permanently encapsulate it, so you have the ability to remove it from the case if that's something that you want. And again, there is a link down in the description if you want to check out Gator Guard as a product. As I mentioned earlier in the video, a lot of the decisions for which grading company you go with will depend upon the situation that you find yourself in. And what I mean by that is what services do you actually need, right? And depending upon the services that you need, there could be one grading company that is a better fit than another. And I will tell you, there is no grading company that offers all of the services that are out there. And so that's why it's important for you to think about what is it that you need, and then you match those needs up with the services that are being offered by the third-party grading companies. Let's say that you have a lot of books in your collection that have been signed by creators over the years. And these could be ones that you personally had signed, or they could be ones that come with certificates of authenticity. In these situations, there are three grading companies that you want to look at. They include CBCS, EGS, and also PGX. These three companies will receive and authenticate signatures that have been placed on comics. You cannot use a company like CGC. CGC will only verify a signature that has actually been witnessed by either a facilitator or an employee of CGC. So in those types of situations where you have books that have already been signed and you want to maximize the value, if you will, that comes with that signature, there are three options to consider. Let's say you're one of those people that doesn't like the idea of permanent encapsulation in plastic. If you're one of those people, yet you still want to protect, preserve, and have your book graded, you can actually send those books over to CBCS or EGS. In these situations, what they will essentially do is to receive the book, clean, press, grade it, but when they get to the encapsulation phase, they will skip it. They will actually place the book into a mylar and they will seal it with a seal of authenticity that essentially says this book has officially been graded. In those situations, the book still goes through the process, it receives a grade, but it does not go to that final step of encapsulation. Let's say that you have a comic and you want to do something special for this book, right? You want to set it apart from the other books that are out there. One thing that you can do is to apply a custom label to that comic. There are two companies that offer customizable labels, and they do it in very different ways. With a company like EGS, they actually give you the ability to fully customize your label to make it complement the comic that has been encapsulated. And so this is a great way to really give something a unique look and feel that is completely different from anything else that might be out there. There is a cost for that, no doubt about it, but it's a great option. On the other side, you have a company like CGC, which offers up a predetermined set of custom labels that you can pick from. And these custom labels will feature either a character or multiple characters that you can actually pick from during the submission process. So again, very different options, but really awesome options if you want to do something special. Two other situations that I want to talk about here. Let's say that you have magazines that you want to have graded. There is only one company that will actually grade and encapsulate a magazine, and that happens to be CGC. To my knowledge, no company out there will actually grade and encapsulate a treasury. And I want to make mention of that because I get a lot of questions about treasuries, but for some reason or another, that is not something that third-party grading companies are interested in encapsulating. Now, with that said, that also brings us to original art. This is a huge part of the comic book market, and there are two grading companies that will grade and essentially encapsulate original art, and they include CGC and also CBCS. So I want to move beyond just simply talking about the services as a reason why you would choose one grading company versus another, and I want to talk about some other situations that you potentially could find yourself in. Let's say that you're one of those people that wants to make money and you are in it for the profit, either through speculation or through long-term investment. If that is the case, you may want to consider CGC. The reason being, it appears that CGC commands a premium in the market when it comes to resale. And so again, if profit is your motivator, CGC might be the company that you want to pick. I recently did an analysis here on the YouTube channel in which we looked at a relatively small sample of about 15 books from different grades, different genres, different publishers, and what we found generally is that CGC books will command a premium over their next nearest competitor, that being CBCS. If you have not seen that video, I definitely want to encourage you to check it out because I think it is insightful. It's a wonderful piece of information, and again, not 100% conclusive because we only looked at about 15 books when I think a much larger sample size would maybe tell us a lot more, especially if we track it over time, but a good video nevertheless. Turnaround time is a major factor right now, and if you have tapped into any service anywhere during this pandemic, you know what I'm talking about, but grading companies specifically have been hit incredibly hard. And so if turnaround time is an important factor for you, you may want to consider one of the smaller third-party grading companies. So your PGX or your EGS are going to be good options in terms of faster turnaround times. With that said, let's say that you want to cut down your turnaround time, but you want to send it in to CBCS or CGC. One thing that you could do is to outsource the cleaning and pressing to a third party. You send it off to this third party presser. They will do that process. They will send it back to you. Then you can send it in to one of the grading companies. That will speed things up. There is also a way for you to send it to that third-party presser who will then send it to the grader, to the third-party grader on your behalf. That is also a viable option. I typically recommend that people receive the books back themselves first. That way you can take a look at the book and see how well it was cleaned or pressed before the submission process. But again, your collection, you'll have to decide what makes the most sense for you. But by outsourcing the pressing part, that will significantly cut down on the turnaround time because you're removing that element, and the third-party grader only has to focus on the grading and encapsulation of the comic. Let's say that you are someone that collects not just comics, but you collect other things. Depending upon what you collect and what you choose to grade, one grading company could make more sense than another because essentially you could have a one-stop shop for all of the collectibles that you choose to grade. So for example, let's say that you collect comics and also cards. If that is the case, a company like CBCS would be a good option for you because through their relationship with Beckett, you can actually send over to them your cards, you can have those be graded, and you can also have your comics graded by them as well. Great option because it's one company, if you will, to focus on for your submissions, for your grading. You kind of know what to expect over time because you're gaining experience with specifically that company. Let's say that you collect more things. Let's say that you collect coins and paper money, maybe sports cards and trading cards. In that case, you may want to look at a company like CGC. Through their parent company, they have the ability to grade and encapsulate a lot of different collectibles. And in the near term, it appears that they're also going to be grading video games and also VHS tapes as well. So again, depending upon what you collect, a one-stop shop could prompt you to pick one company versus another. To this point of picking a grading company, I have to make mention of cost, technically price, because I think that this is an important thing for people to think about and to consider. If price is a factor and how much money you have to spend is a factor, you definitely want to take a look at the pricing that is offered by the 4 grading companies that are out there. When I took a look at the pricing specifically for modern comics, essentially what I saw is that PGX by far is the cheapest of the companies. Next up is EGS and also CBCS, and then the most expensive is CGC by a couple of dollars. So again, if you are one of those people that has to work within a certain budget or how much money you spend is an important factor for you, I think it's important to take a look at how much these companies are actually charging for the services that they render. While at the same time, you have to think about the other end of what do you get out of it, because I think that that is also an important thing to think about. The last point that I want to make here is that once you land on a grading company, you are not wedded to that grading company forever. You have the ability to mix and match. You have the ability to shift from one to another 6 months or a year from now if what they are offering makes better sense for you or if your needs happen to change. So don't feel like you are cemented to a decision once it's been made because you have an ability to change it as you see fit. With that said, I am going to wrap this video up. I want to thank you for taking the time to watch. I hope that you found it informative. And if you did, I certainly want to encourage you to hit the thumbs up button and leave a comment behind. If you need to reach out to me, feel free to do so on Instagram at Regie Collects. Take care.